Now that we've seen the two different kinds of charts, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can add the gray extended stitch indicators to a plain Blackwork embroidery chart so that you can go ahead and use that to create your Tunisian mosaic projects. You can actually use the left chart here and directly start working on a Tunisian mosaic project from that as well. If you know the two rules, you can apply the two rules as you go. But I prefer to create the chart on the right before I start so that I have the indicators in place so that when I am going in and creating my Tunisian project, I don't have to think about what stitch to make. I can just read it off of the chart. The first rule is that you do not uh, add a gray line, which is the extended stitch indicator, if there is a horizontal line below the next stitch. So let's look at this example here. If you look at that first stitch there that is indicated by the blue arrow, there is a horizontal line under that. The line ends there, but it's still there. So if a horizontal line exists under the stitch that you're working with right now, then you will not add a stitch indicator there. So similarly, if you move on to the next stitch, there is a horizontal line under there, so we will not add an indicator. Same goes for the next and the next and the next. So there are a total of 5 stitches that have that horizontal line under them, and that is why we will not add those stitch indicators there. The second rule is that you do not add an indicator if an extended stitch begins or ends below the next stitch. So let's look at this example here. Again, we're looking at the stitch indicated by the blue arrow, and the blue dot under that shows that there is a stitch that ends, an extended stitch that ends at that point. So that means we're not going to add the gray line over there. Going up, same as before, there is a extended stitch that is ending at the blue dot. In this case, there's also a stitch which is starting at the blue dot. So here, there's both, but it doesn't have to be. Even if one of the conditions apply, that either a stitch ends or starts at the blue dot, then you will not add the gray line. So we will not add one there. And in the next one here, we will not add the gray line because there is an extended stitch that starts at that blue dot. I'm going to show you some examples of common designs that we're going to see in actual Blackwork patterns. So if you know how to uh, add the indicators to these, then it will be easier for you to go in and work on the larger designs. So for this one here, there is a square right in the middle. If you look at the 5 stitches indicated by the blue arrows, rule number 1 applies, and that is why we will not add any indicators there. So that is 5 stitches where you're not adding the gray line. Now you go up, there are 5 stitches there, which where rule 1 will apply. It's the same as the ones that we looked earlier. So we will not add the gray stitch indicators there. Moving on to this example where it's a small diamond, you can see that there are 4 points where you will not add those indicators, the gray lines, and that's because either an extended stitch starts or ends below those stitches. Now here, the long diagonals, these are the ones that can get a tiny bit tricky, and I wanted to make sure that I explain these a little more in detail. So again, here there are only 4 points where you will not add those stitch indicators. So these are the 4 points where the stitches either start or end. There are parts in this diamond where you'll see, say for example, this one, if you see the stitch indicated by the blue arrow, it seems like a stitch ends at the blue dot where There is the diagonal intersects the horizontal line in the grid, and while you're reading the chart, visually you may not realize that that's not a point where the stitch ends, so you might skip that stitch indicator there, but that's not something you want to skip because you have to build the fabric behind that diagonal stitch. Otherwise, the design will not work out. So make sure that you do not forget to add the indicator there and there and there and there. So in all four of these places, there is a chance that you might think that your stitch is anchored, but it's actually not. It's just a long diagonal and it is going over the fabric at that point. It is similar for this diamond. You will need to skip the indicators, the gray lines at the 4 points that are indicated by the blue arrows. Now here you can see that at the point where the blue arrow is, the diagonal is intersecting a vertical line in the grid. And again, remember that this is a long diagonal. It's not actually ending there. That stitch is not ending there. The stitch is just going over the fabric over there. So you have to make sure that you add that gray extended stitch indicator there. So there's that spot and that and that and that. There are these 4 spots where you have to make sure that you add your stitch indicators. So what I recommend is that at the beginning, when you are looking at your chart, just visually uh, mark your long diagonal stitches so that as you're adding the gray extended stitch indicators, you will know that these are the long diagonals and there's a lesser chance of you making a mistake and skipping these. So that's just a tip if that's something you wanted to do. So that's pretty much it for adding these stitch indicators. The rules are really simple. It's just it needs some practice to get it right.